The SOS ignored the stars were quiet as Earth's communication systems buzzed to life. A distress signal, weak but desperate, crackled through the silence of space. The message came from a distant colony, a small settlement on a remote world. At the edge of known space, the coordinates pinpointed a location far from Earth, deep in the uncharted regions of the galaxy. "Unusual," said Lieutenant Mara Jacobs, glancing at the flickering data on the screen. "It's faint, but it's definitely an SOS." She passed the data to Captain Alec Turner, the seasoned leader of Earth's defense fleet. The message was simple. Too simple, with no clear context, just a short, panic-filled cry for help. A colony was under attack. But who or what was the threat? Captain Turner leaned forward in his chair, scanning the transmission with a furrowed brow. "Why are we just hearing about this now?" he muttered, his voice tinged with frustration. He had always known that humanity's place in the galaxy was precarious. But after years of silence from the unknown regions beyond Earth's borders, a message like this was too much to ignore. "Where's the backup fleet?" Turner asked, his voice firm, but with a hint of growing concern. Lieutenant Jacobs shook her head. "There's nothing, sir. No nearby support. No response from the Council. They haven't authorized a fleet mobilization yet." The Galactic Council had long considered the edge of the galaxy to be a peaceful, forgotten region, free from major threats. The idea that a small colony could be in danger from something beyond their comprehension was too far-fetched for most of the Council members. The situation was dismissed as a mere glitch, an accidental signal from an automated system. Turner's mind raced. "You're telling me that no one's taking this seriously?" Mara nodded. "Council members believe it's an equipment malfunction. They don't see any reason to investigate further." Alex stood up from his seat, his boots clicking softly on the floor as he walked toward the massive window overlooking the black void of space. He crossed his arms and stared out at the endless expanse, his mind whirling with possibilities. "They're making a mistake," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "We can't just ignore this. There's something out there, something that means business." Turner wasn't one to stand idly by when there was a potential threat to Earth. He had seen enough wars, enough battles, to know when a situation was escalating, even if it wasn't fully visible yet. A chill ran down his spine as the thought of unknown enemies with unknown intentions gnawed at his mind. He turned back to Lieutenant Jacobs. "I'll take this to the High Command. We're not waiting for them to make a decision." Jacobs hesitated. "Sir, the Council won't." "I don't care," Turner interrupted. "We're going. The colony's in trouble, and I'm not going to sit around while Earth waits for approval." With his decision made, he began issuing orders. The fleet would be mobilized. As a seasoned captain, Turner trusted his instincts, and his instincts told him that this SOS wasn't just a false alarm. Minutes turned into hours, and by the time Earth's defense fleet was on the move, the SOS signal had stopped. The screen was blank. No more frantic cries for help. No more signs of life. Alex stared at the empty screen. His gut tightened. "Maybe we're too late," he whispered under his breath. "Maybe they're already gone." The fleet charged forward through space, Earth's finest warships cutting through the blackness, their engines glowing bright. But as the fleet neared the coordinates of a colony, there was no sign of an attack, no sign of the civilization they had come to protect. Just empty space. Turner's eyes scanned the horizon, his grip tightening on the control panel. What happened here? Where's the colony? Suddenly, a piercing noise blasted through the command center, an emergency warning. A massive, dark shape appeared on the radar screen, cutting through the space between the fleet and the colony. It wasn't the colony. It wasn't any human ship at all. A fleet of warships vast and menacing, came into view, their dark forms slowly emerging from the shadow of a distant moon. The Deathworlders, an ancient, terrifying race known for their brutality and ruthless conquest of weaker civilizations. Turner's breath caught in his throat. The Deathworlder fleet had arrived. He had been right. The SOS had been real. But it was too late. The warning had been ignored, and now Earth's fleet was facing a nightmare far worse than they could have imagined. "Get ready, everyone," Turner said, his voice cold and steady as he gave the order. "We're in for the fight of our lives." The fleet's engines roared to life as they surged toward the incoming enemy. The first shots were fired, but the Deathworlders were ready. They had been waiting, and now the true battle for Earth's survival was about to begin. Ask ChatG*, the gathering storm as Earth's fleet moved ever closer to the mysterious Deathworlder armada. Captain Alec Turner stood at the helm, a figure of quiet determination. The stars outside his window blurred into streaks of light as they accelerated toward what could be the deadliest battle humanity had ever faced. The urgency was overwhelming, yet Turner's expression remained calm, his years of experience guiding him through the chaos of space battles. "We're in their range," Lieutenant Mara Jacobs reported, her voice tense. "They're powering up their weapons." The bridge of the flagship Vanguard grew quieter as the crew braced themselves. Turner's eyes flicked to the tactical display. The Deathworlder fleet, though far from the colony now, was vast dozens of massive warships with weaponry capable of obliterating any ship in its path. The sight on the radar was enough to send a chill down anyone's spine. "Captain, we've got no backup," Mara continued, her fingers flying over the console. "We're completely on our own here." The words hit harder than any weapon could. Earth's defense forces were formidable, but the Deathworlders were legends, unrelenting and unforgiving. Their fleet was said to be capable of reducing entire star systems to ash. "Captain, what are our orders?" Ensign Scott, a nervous young officer on the bridge, asked quietly. His voice cracked under the pressure. Turner turned to face his crew, his gaze intense. "We fight, and we fight to survive." But survival wasn't going to be easy. The Vanguard had powerful weapons, but the Deathworlder ships were nearly twice its size, heavily armored, and brimming with terrifying firepower. They had no choice but to engage, to hold their ground as best they could. It was a matter of pride, yes, but more importantly, it was a matter of humanity's future. "Deploy the defense drones," Turner ordered. "Prepare the main cannons, full power to shields." The crew sprang into action, the metallic hum of the ship vibrating underfoot as systems came online, readying for what might be their final fight. Turner kept his eyes locked on the radar, knowing that at any moment, the first volley could ignite a conflict that would tear the galaxy apart. The Deathworlder's lead warship, a colossal behemoth dubbed Leviathan, was closing in, its massive hull shining darkly in the starlight. It was an intimidating sight, its prow cutting through space like a predator closing in on its prey. "Captain, they're hailing us," came the voice of the communications officer, breaking the silence. "It's a direct transmission." Turner's brows furrowed. No enemy ever made contact like this before a battle. There was a moment of hesitation, but Turner nodded, signaling for the transmission to go through. The screen flickered, and a figure appeared. A tall, imposing being with reddish-gray skin and glowing yellow eyes. His voice was deep, almost too calm for someone standing at the edge of war. "I am Commander Varax," the Deathworlder said, his voice carrying an icy weight. "You've ignored our warning, and now you will pay the price for your arrogance." Turner didn't flinch. He'd heard the rumors about the Deathworlder's merciless conquerors, who respected only strength, whose empire had shattered civilizations across countless star systems. But he wasn't about to show weakness now. "We're not afraid of you," Turner said, his voice firm and unwavering. We will defend Earth, no matter the cost. The Deathworlder commander chuckled darkly, his yellow eyes narrowing. We have already won. Your pitiful fleet is no match for us. Turner stared at the screen, his pulse steady despite the weight of the moment. He wasn't just fighting for Earth. He was fighting for all of humanity's future in the galaxy. The fear in his crew's eyes was evident, but he knew they were ready. Earth had come a long way from its days of isolation and weakness. We shall see, Turner replied, his voice a razor-sharp contrast to Vorax's arrogance. We shall see who the victor is. As the transmission cut off, Turner turned to face his crew. They could feel the tension thick in the air. No more words could be said. The only thing left now was action. Brace for impact, Turner ordered. Prepare to engage them head-on. All units opened fire on my mark. The tension on the bridge was palpable as the crew waited, breaths held for the inevitable clash of power. Outside, the Deathworlder fleet loomed larger, now mere moments away. The Vanguard and its allies locked their weapons onto the enemy ships, their targeting systems zeroing in on the approaching threat. And then, without another word, Captain Turner gave the order. Fire! The first volley of Earth's cannons ripped through the void, lighting up the darkness of space. Explosions rocked the Deathworlder lines, but their massive ships barely flinched. A quick return fire from the Deathworlders sent a shockwave through the Vanguard, throwing the crew off balance. Sparks flew from the control panels, but Turner's voice never wavered. Stay focused. He commanded. The battle had begun. The fate of the colony and the future of Earth itself hung in the balance. The war was not just a fight for survival. It was a fight to prove humanity's place in the galaxy. Asterisk, the fire within the battle was already in full swing, and the Vanguard was feeling the strain. Its hull shuddered with every impact, and the ship groaned under the pressure of the constant barrage from the Deathworlders. The crew worked in frantic unison, their every movement calculated as the battle raged outside. The giant ships of the Deathworlder fleet loomed like ancient titans, their weapons lighting up the darkness, firing back with terrifying precision. Shields at 30%. Lieutenant Jacobs yelled from her station. We can't take much more of this. Captain Alec Turner's gaze was unwavering as he stared at the chaotic scene unfolding on the tactical screen. The Deathworlders Leviathan had taken the brunt of their fire and still held strong. The battle was becoming a desperate war of attrition. Each shot fired by Earth's fleet was met with a devastating counterattack, and yet Turner didn't back down. He had never backed down from a fight in his life, and today would be no different. We're not backing down, Turner muttered to himself, his fingers gripped firmly around the armrest of his chair. We're human, and we fight. Captain. Ensign Scott's voice trembled from the comms panel. We're outgunned. The fleet's starting to retreat. Turner turned sharply to face him. The young officer was wide-eyed, his face pale from the stress of the ongoing battle. Turner's gaze softened for just a moment, understanding the fear in Scott's eyes. But he knew that if he showed even a hint of doubt, the whole crew would lose hope. No retreat, Turner ordered with cold authority. Prepare for Phase 2. We're taking the fight to them. He reached for the intercom. All fleet commanders, listen up. You've got one chance. We're hitting them with everything we've got. Coordinate your firepower on Leviathan. No mercy. We've got a small window, and it's now or never. Do not let them win this. The intercom crackled with the affirmation of the commanders, their voices filled with determination. The plan was risky. A full frontal assault on the Leviathan, the largest and most powerful of the Deathworlder ships. It was a gamble, but Captain Turner had never been one to sit back and let the enemy dictate the turns of battle. Phase 2 initiated, Lieutenant Jacobs said, her voice strained but confident. The ship began to maneuver, angling itself toward the Leviathan, and Earth's fleet followed suit. Outside, the stars became a blur as Earth's warships gathered, their strength for one final push. The Vanguard's cannons fired again, this time with an intensity that shocked even the Deathworlders. The enemy fleet responded, but it was clear they had not anticipated such a fierce, all-out counterattack from humanity. "We're making a dent," Lieutenant Jacobs shouted. "The Leviathan is showing signs of damage." Turner's heart pounded in his chest. He had known Earth's fleet could do this if they fought with everything they had, but the sheer determination of his crew was what truly made the difference. Humanity might not be the biggest player in the galaxy, but they had something no other species could match: the will to fight, to survive, to never give up. But just as victory seemed within reach, the Deathworlders revealed their trump card. A new wave of smaller, faster ships, sleek and deadly, emerged from behind the Leviathan. They were designed for one thing: to attack from all sides, overwhelming their enemies with sheer numbers and speed. "They've deployed assault ships," Ensign Scott called out. "We're surrounded." The Vanguard rocked violently as the smaller ship strafed its surface, firing on every angle. The shields were failing fast. Turner's jaw clenched, and his mind raced for a solution: evasive maneuvers. He commanded, and the crew sprang into action. But it was clear that the Deathworlders had superior numbers, and they were beginning to wear down the defenses of Earth's fleet. The smaller ships were too agile, darting in and out of range, and the fire from the larger Deathworlder ships kept coming. The crew worked tirelessly, but Turner could see the strain on their faces. The situation was slipping from their grasp. "Captain," Jacob said, her voice strained with urgency, "we need to fall back. The fleet can't hold out much longer." "No," Turner replied with a force that made Jacobs pause. "We're not running. We hold the line. We fight, and we make them pay for every inch of space they take." His words were like a spark, reigniting the fire in his crew's hearts. The battle was far from over, and as long as there was a single human left to fight, they would never surrender. Even as their fleet was being overwhelmed, Turner could see the resolve in his crew's eyes. They had come a long way from being an isolated world, forgotten by the galaxy. Now they stood as a force to be reckoned with. "Phase 3, Turner barked. "All units, initiate the counteroffensive. We'll break their lines. For Earth." With a final rallying cry, the remaining ships of Earth's fleet surged forward once again. Despite the overwhelming odds, they were no longer just defending. They were striking back with everything they had left. The enemy may have thought they could wipe out humanity easily, but they had underestimated the fire within the human spirit. The battle raged on, the stars overhead a witness to the struggle. For every human ship that fell, another rose to take its place. And in the heart of the Vanguard, Captain Alec Turner knew that even if they lost this battle, Earth would never be forgotten in the galaxy. Humanity's fight had only just begun. Past Chat G***. The reluctant alliance, the battle between Earth and the Deathworlders, continued to rage, and the void of space was filled with the deafening sounds of laser fire and explosions. The Vanguard and its fleet fought with every ounce of strength they had left. Each moment stretched into an eternity, and yet there was still no sign of victory. Captain Alec Turner's mind raced, calculating every move, every risk, as Earth's forces dwindled under the relentless pressure of the Deathworlder onslaught. But then, as the death toll mounted, a sudden and unexpected transmission interrupted the chaos. "Captain Turner, this is Commander Velka of the Oran Syndicate." The voice crackled over the communication system. "We've been watching you, and we're willing to offer a deal." Turner's brow furrowed as he gripped the edge of his command chair. "The Oran Syndicate?" he muttered to himself. The Syndicate was an infamous collection of rogue ships and mercenaries, no friends of the Galactic Council, but certainly no strangers to combat. Their reputation was mixed. They were known for doing whatever it took to survive, no matter the cost. "Why would you help us?" Turner asked, his voice cautious but tinged with hope. "You're mercenaries. Why ally with humanity?" "Now, we have our reasons," Velka responded, her voice cold yet oddly persuasive. "Your battle against the Deathworlders interests us. We've got a score to settle with them too. But don't mistake this for charity. If we help you win, you'll owe us." Turner considered the offer, his mind spinning. It wasn't the kind of alliance he would have chosen under better circumstances, but the situation was dire. The Deathworlder fleet was pressing harder with every passing minute, and Earth ships were barely holding on. A shaky alliance might be the only chance for victory. "All right, Velka, we'll take your help. But don't think for a second they'll have the upper hand in this. If we survive, you'll follow our terms," Turner said firmly. The Oran Syndicate's fleet smaller ships with formidable speed and firepower suddenly appeared out of the dark expanse, cutting through the Deathworlder lines with sharp, precise strikes. The mercenary ships were nimble, darting in and out of the fight, confusing the larger and slower Deathworlder warships. The Vanguard and the remaining Earthships quickly adapted to the new offensive, synchronizing their movements. With the Syndicate forces, the Deathworlders were caught off guard. They had expected a straightforward, crushing victory, not an unexpected intervention from an unpredictable ally. For the first time in the battle, the momentum shifted. "Captain, we've got them," Lieutenant Jacobs shouted as she tracked the movements of the Leviathan on her screen. "The Syndicate's keeping them off balance. It's working." But the victory was short-lived. The Deathworlders, realizing the sudden imbalance, responded with an even more devastating assault. A hail of plasma and energy beams rained down on the Vanguard, and the shields flickered dangerously. Turner gritted his teeth as the ship shuddered under the attack. "Report!" He snapped. "Shields down to 10%, Mara called out. "The Leviathan is powering up its main weapon." Turner's eyes widened as he saw the enemy flagship's massive cannon glow with deadly intensity. If the Deathworlders unleashed that weapon on the Vanguard, it could destroy them in an instant. Evasive maneuvers. "Now," Turner ordered, but the ship was already being forced into a deadly path. They were too close to the enemy's flagship, and the Deathworlders had calculated the Vanguard's movements with terrifying precision. "Captain, we won't make it," Ensign Scott shouted. The fear in his voice was palpable. Just then, the sound of engines roaring louder than ever before filled the bridge. The Oran Syndicate's mercenaries had launched a surprise attack, this time targeting the Leviathan's weaker side. The smaller ships darted in, firing with unmatched agility, throwing off the Deathworlder's aim. "Hold on," Turner shouted, gripping the armrests of his chair. The Vanguard swerved, narrowly avoiding the Leviathan's deadly blast. The enemy flagship's weapon fired wildly, missing by mere inches. "Now's our chance," Turner roared. "All ships, focus your fire on Leviathan. Full power to the main cannons." Earth's fleet, bolstered by the Syndicate's surprise tactics, launched a relentless assault on the Leviathan. The mighty warship's shields flickered under the barrage of fire, and for the first time since the battle began, the Deathworlders seemed unsure that the Vanguard moved in closer as Turner ordered all ships to converge. The Leviathan's main cannon was still charging, but the ship was no longer as invulnerable as it once was. "Take them down now," Turner commanded. The crew's hands flew over their controls, and the next volley of fire pierced the Deathworlder flagship's hull, causing a massive explosion to ripple outward. For a moment, the battle seemed to pause. The Leviathan's engines sputtered, and the flagship slowly turned. its shields flickering in a last desperate attempt to stay operational. "They're retreating," Jacobs yelled, disbelief and exhilaration in her voice. "The Leviathan is pulling back." The Deathworld fleet was losing ground. Despite their overwhelming numbers, they were being forced to retreat, piece by piece. The Syndicate's interference, coupled with Earth's tenacity, had shifted the tide of the battle, but Captain Turner knew it wasn't over yet. The Deathworlders had been wounded, but they were far from defeated. The Leviathan was retreating, but Earth's fleet had suffered heavy damage as well. Their victory came at a high price. "Don't celebrate just yet," Turner muttered, his voice steely. "This war isn't over." Not by a long shot. As the vanguard limped forward, the crew knew that, for now, they had survived. But their true test was only beginning. The Deathworlders would regroup, and next time, they would be ready for humanity. The galaxy was watching, and Earth's place in it was about to be forever changed. Asterisk. The quiet before the storm, eerie silence that followed the retreat of the Deathworlder fleet was almost as unsettling as the battle itself. The once deafening sound of weapons fire and the hum of damaged systems was replaced by the quiet hum of the Vanguard's engines. The stars outside the ship's windows were calm again, as if the universe itself had paused, holding its breath after the stormed out Captain Alec Turner stood at the command center, staring at the tactical display. The Leviathan and its fleet had pulled back, but their retreat wasn't the kind of victory most would celebrate. Earth's fleet had taken heavy losses, and the Syndicate's help had come at a price one they would collect sooner or later. "Captain," Lieutenant Mara Jacobs said, breaking the silence, "we've got a few minutes before the fleet regroups. You might want to take a break." Turner didn't respond right away. His mind was far away, replaying the events that had led them to this point. Despite the victory, he couldn't shake the feeling that the Deathworlders had only been testing them, probing for weaknesses. Why did they retreat? Turner finally muttered, "They had us on the ropes. Why pull back now?" Jacobs didn't have an answer. She, like the rest of the crew, had no idea why the Deathworlders had suddenly chosen to fall back. It didn't make sense. They were a war-hungry race, relentless. So why would they pull away at the height of their power? Before she could speak again, the communications officer spoke up. "Captain, we've received another transmission. It's the Syndicate." Turner's eyes narrowed. He hadn't forgotten the bargain with the Oran Syndicate. They had offered their help, but no one did anything for free in this galaxy. He braced himself as he gestured for the transmission to come through. The screen flickered, and a figure appeared, a tall, striking woman with short-cropped silver hair and sharp, calculating eyes. She was flanked by several armed individuals, a reminder that the Syndicate was not a group to be trifled with. "Captain Turner," the woman said, her voice smooth, but with an underlying edge, "I trust you're grateful for our intervention." Turner didn't hide the skepticism in his gaze. "I'm grateful for your help, Commander Velka, but I'm not blind to the fact that you've got your own reasons for getting involved." "What's the catch?" Velka's smile was thin. "I see you're as shrewd as they say. The catch is simple. We saved your fleet. But now we expect to cash in on the favor." Turner's jaw tightened. "Name your price." Velka's eyes gleamed. "We'll need a safe passage through your territory. We've got some business to attend to, and a few enemies of our own we need to handle. We need sanctuary, Captain, in exchange for the help we've given you." The request hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Sanctuary? Earth's fleet could never trust the Syndicate fully, not with their dubious reputation and their willingness to betray allies for profit. But right now, they had no choice. "We'll talk terms," Turner said reluctantly. "But this is a temporary arrangement. Don't think for a second you can use us for long." Velka's smile widened. "Of course, Captain. Temporary?" For now. With that, the transmission ended, and Turner was left standing in silence. The Syndicate had made their move. And now, the only question was whether they could trust these rogue mercenaries to stay true to their word. "Captain," Jacob said softly, "we should focus on repairing the fleet. We still don't know what we're up against." Turner nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the battle was far from over. The Deathworlders might have retreated, but they would be back. And this time, they wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Later that day, in the Vanguard's repair bay, the crew worked tirelessly to restore what had been damaged during the battle. The hum of welding tools and the clanging of metal filled the air as engineers patched up the holes in the ship's hull. Captain Turner walked through the bay, observing the damage and the work being done. The Vanguard was still standing, but it had taken a beating. The crew had done what they could, but this battle was just the beginning. "Captain," Jacobs approached him, a concerned look on her face. "We've picked up something unusual." Turner raised an eyebrow. "What's going on?" "Another fleet," Jacobs replied. "It's out there, on the edge of our sensors. It's small, but it's moving toward us fast." Turner's heart skipped a beat. "Are they Deathworlders?" "We don't know yet," Jacobs said, "but it's likely. We're not out of danger." Turner nodded grimly. The feeling in his gut, the one that had been gnawing at him all day, had been right. The Deathworlders weren't done with them. And this time, they were bringing reinforcements. In the void, the Deathworlder fleet had regrouped, its commanders rethinking their initial retreat. Commander Vorax, leader of the Leviathan, stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars swirl by as his fleet readied itself for another strike. The humans had proven themselves more resilient than expected, but that wouldn't stop them. "They've bought themselves a moment," Vorax muttered, turning to his second-in-command. "But only a moment. The time has come to finish what we started." The fleet's new reinforcements arrived in the distance. More ships, more firepower. They would hit Earth's fleet hard, overwhelming them before they could recover from the previous battle. The humans' resistance had been impressive, but it was also futile. "They've made their mistake," Vorax said, his voice cold. "Now they will pay." The Leviathan's engines powered up, and the Deathworlder fleet began its final march toward Earth. As Earth's fleet prepared for another round of war, Captain Turner stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, gazing out at the stars once more. The calm was a fleeting illusion. He knew the real storm was just beginning, and this time, Earth would not be able to rely on the Syndicate for help. The galaxy was changing, and humanity would have to fight harder than ever to secure its place among the stars. The battle for Earth's survival was about to enter its most dangerous phase, and Turner had no illusions about what was coming next. Ask Chachi Asterisk. A spark in the darkness. The stars outside the Vanguard's bridge were an endless sea of cold, distant lights, but to Captain Alec Turner, they seemed to mock him. The fleet had endured so much already, yet the hardest challenge was yet to come. The Deathworlder fleet had regrouped, stronger than before, and their reinforcements were closing in, but Turner refused to give in. His crew, though weary, stood, firm, determined to fight on despite the mounting odds. Humanity had proven its strength once already, but now the time was coming when that strength would truly be tested. "Captain," Lieutenant Jacobs said, her voice tight with urgency, "we've confirmed the incoming fleet. It's much larger this time. They're bringing everything they've got." Turner didn't flinch. The same cool resolve he had shown since the first volley of fire against the Deathworlders remained in place. "How long do we have before they reach us?" "At least 2 hours," Jacobs replied, scanning the data. "But they'll be here sooner if they push their speed to maximum." Turner's gaze moved to the view screen, where the incoming fleet flickered as a faint blip on the radar. 2 hours ... time to prepare, then. Later that day, in the briefing room, the officers of Earth's fleet gathered. The Syndicate had disappeared into the shadows once more, retreating to their hidden ships. Turner didn't trust them, but for now, they were all that stood between Earth and the Deathworlder juggernaut. "We've taken heavy losses," Captain Turner said as he addressed his crew. "And we've got no illusions about what's coming next. The Deathworlders aren't just here to conquer Earth. They're here to wipe us out." The officers nodded grimly. The damage to Earth's fleet was extensive. Several ships were still in the repair bays, barely holding together after the last battle. Some of the crew had already been lost, and the rest were running on fumes. But they had no choice. "We have to fight back," Turner continued, his voice unwavering. "We'll need a two-pronged approach. The Vanguard will lead the charge. We'll draw their fire and keep them focused on us. Meanwhile, our remaining ships will flank and hit them where it hurts on their supply lines and their weaker ships." Lieutenant Jacobs raised her hand. "Captain, with all due respect, we're spread thin. If we take on that fleet head-on, we won't make it. We need reinforcements, something bigger, something unexpected." A thought crossed Turner's mind, a dangerous thought. "I have an idea." In the depths of space, as Earth's fleet began its preparations, a lone scout ship made its way into the depths of the galaxy. It wasn't a large ship, just a small reconnaissance vessel, equipped with advanced stealth technology. But inside it, something far more valuable was hidden: knowledge. A secret weapon. Dr. Lisa Harper, a brilliant but unconventional scientist, had been working on something extraordinary, something no one could have anticipated. She had been quietly preparing for this moment, even when the Galactic Council had ignored Earth's warnings. She had been gathering data, studying the Deathworlders, their technology, and their weaknesses. Now, her work would come to fruition. The ship's crew, a small team of researchers and engineers, had been operating on a tight schedule collecting rare minerals, reverse engineering alien tech, and building a device capable of crippling the Deathworlder fleet's most powerful weapon, their advanced hyperdrive systems. If it worked, it could turn the tide of the war. If it didn't, well, it was humanity's last shot. Dr. Harper stared at the data screen in front of her, eyes flicking over the intricate calculations. She had calculated every variable, tested every theory. There was no room for error. She'd given the project her all, sacrificing sleep, sanity, and time, but now her creation was ready. "We're entering the Deathworlder fleet's territory," the pilot said, his voice tense. "We're too close for comfort." Harper barely reacted. Her focus was absolute. "Prepare to deploy the device. Let's see if humanity's gamble pays off." Back at Earth's fleet, the hour of reckoning had arrived. Earth's fleet, though battered and bruised, stood at the ready. The Deathworlder ships were closing in fast, their weapons powered up, and their mission clear. Destroy humanity. Turner stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, his eyes locked on the massive oncoming fleet. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but he wasn't ready to give up. Not when so many had already sacrificed so much. "Targeting systems online," Jacobs reported. "Shields are holding steady at 50%. We'll have to make every shot count." Turner nodded. "We won't get a second chance. Initiate the plan. All ships, prepare for Phase 1. Keep them focused on us." The Vanguard fired its first volley, striking at the lead Deathworlder ships, but the enemy retaliated immediately, their weapons smashing against Earth's shields. Explosions rippled through the Vanguard, shaking the entire ship. "We've got their attention," Turner said, his jaw clenched. "But we need something bigger." The secret weapon. As the battle raged on, Dr. Harper's stealth ship neared the outskirts of the Deathworlder fleet. The hyperdrive weapon, a modified EMP device, was hidden beneath layers of camouflaged plating, waiting for the signal to launch. "Ready for deployment, Dr. Harper," the pilot said. "On your command." "Deploy it," she said with a calmness that masked the weight of the moment. The device was launched from the stealth ship, its trajectory locked on the heart of the Deathworlder fleet. A single pulse could cripple their entire fleet's ability to jump through hyperspace, stranding them in real space, vulnerable and exposed. It was humanity's best chance. As the EMP device reached its destination, Harper's fingers hovered over the activation button. The Deathworlder ships were closing in, their weapons aimed at Earth's fleet. If this didn't work, the battle would be over before it had even begun. With a single press, the device emitted a pulse that rippled through the fabric of space itself. The Deathworlder fleet shuddered, and their ships froze in place, unable to move. For a moment, everything stopped. Turner's eyes widened as the tactical display showed the Deathworlder fleet's movements grinding to a halt. The Leviathan, the flagship of their entire armada, was unable to move, its massive weapon systems powered down. "Now," Turner shouted. "Hit them with everything we've got." Earth's fleet unleashed everything in that moment. Every cannon, every missile, every drone, everything was thrown at the Deathworlder fleet, now caught in a deadly trap. And in that moment, Earth was no longer the underdog. Humanity had found its power. It had found its will to survive. And for the first time in a long time, the Deathworlders realized they had underestimated their enemy. The tides of war were turning, and humanity's spark in the darkness had become a blazing inferno. The unseen enemy. The momentum was shifting. For the first time in what felt like forever, humanity had gained an upper hand against the Deathworlders. The massive, powerful fleet of the Deathworlders was now immobilized, its ships vulnerable, helpless in the vast emptiness of space. Earth's fleet, though battered and bruised, had seized the opportunity and unleashed everything in their arsenal. The EMP device, developed in secrecy by Dr. Harper and her team, had crippled the Deathworlders' hyperdrive systems, leaving them stranded in real space. But Turner knew that this victory, if it could even be called that, was fleeting. The Deathworlders had fought back too many times, and their tactics were unpredictable. This could be their next great test. "Captain, the Deathworlders are reactivating their secondary systems," Lieutenant Jacobs said urgently. "They're still crippled, but they're trying to compensate. Their backup weapons are coming online." Turner's heart skipped. Beat. The Deathworlders were not a race that gave up easily. Even in the face of disaster, they could adapt. It was clear that their pride and determination were as dangerous as their weapons. "We need to finish this," Turner muttered, his voice steely with resolve. "All ships, focus fire on the Leviathan. Take out their flagship. If we can cripple their leader, we might stand a chance of breaking their morale." The fleet began to adjust, focusing all its firepower on the Leviathan. The massive warship, once a symbol of the Deathworlders' might, was now surrounded. It fought back with fury, but its movements were slow and sluggish without its hyperdrive systems. Earth ships, agile and coordinated, took advantage of the vulnerability, launching a relentless assault. But as the battle raged, a new threat emerged, one that no one had anticipated. "Captain, we've got a new signal," Jacobs reported, her eyes wide. It's coming from inside the Deathworlder fleet." Turner's brow furrowed. "Inside? What do you mean? Is it another ship?" "No, sir," Jacobs replied, her voice filled with growing concern. "It's something else. A transmission. But it's not from any ship in their fleet. It's coming from their command station, the Leviathan's central core." Turner's eyes narrowed as he turned to face the screen. What kind of transmission? The moment of realization struck him like a thunderclap. The Deathworlders had shown one characteristic that was always present in their species: resilience. But this was something more. Are we dealing with another weapon? Turner asked, his voice tight with suspicion. Jacobs didn't answer immediately. She was too busy scanning the data, trying to make sense of what was happening. No, she said slowly. It's not a weapon. It's a signal. A distress signal. Turner's mind raced. A distress signal? From the Leviathan? Before Jacobs could respond, the communication system flared to life with a strange, distorted voice. It was faint, as if fighting to be heard above the chaos of battle. ... The true enemy ... inside. The fleet ... betrayal ... The voice cut off, leaving nothing but static in its wake. Turner's stomach churned. What the hell was that? We can't be sure yet, Jacob said, her fingers flying over the console. But this doesn't make any sense. Why would they send out a distress signal? And why now? Then it hit him. The Deathworlders had underestimated humanity before, but there was something far more dangerous at play than simple arrogance. What if the Deathworlders weren't just fighting against Earth? They were fighting something else, something even more insidious than humanity realized? Aboard the Leviathan, deep within the heart of the Leviathan, hidden away from the rest of the fleet, a different kind of chaos was unfolding. Commander Varax paced angrily in front of his command chair, his yellow eyes flashing with frustration. The Leviathan had been brought to the brink of destruction, and the humans had done what no one had thought possible. They had pushed the Deathworlders back. But now, something far darker was stirring. Commander, we have an issue, a subordinate sighed, stepping forward, his voice uneasy. The secondary systems are compromised. We can't maintain full control of the ship. And there's something else, ... a disturbance. Varax's eyes narrowed, and he spun around, fury boiling inside him. A disturbance? Yes, sir. It's from within the ship. Something is ... interfering with our control systems. It's as if something is sabotaging us from the inside. Varax's heart pounded in his chest. Who is doing this? The subordinate hesitated. We don't know, Commander, but we have a few suspects. There are whispers of rebellion among the lower ranks. Some of the crew, they're acting strange. Varax's mind raced. A rebellion inside his flagship? He had always ruled with an iron fist, ensuring that no such discontent could ever manifest. The thought of betrayal shook him, but there was no time to waste. Find them, he snarled, his voice low with a menacing edge, and deal with them quickly. The humans are not the only threat we face. Back at Earth's fleet, as the Vanguard continued its assault on the Leviathan, Turner paced the bridge, his mind working overtime. The Deathworlders' unexpected signal was weighing on him heavily. There was more going on than just the battle for Earth's survival. The interference, the rebellion within their ranks, it all pointed to something bigger. Captain, I'm picking up another transmission, Jacob said, her voice urgent. Not again, Turner muttered, his patience thinning. But the transmission was different this time. It wasn't the distorted voice from the Leviathan. It was a clear, coherent message from another source, one Turner had not anticipated. This is Commander Coran of the resurgent faction, the voice said, calm and composed. I'm speaking on behalf of those who have grown tired of the Deathworlder Empire's tyranny. We have taken control of key sections within the fleet. We seek an alliance, not with your enemy, but with you. Together, we can destroy the Leviathan and end the Empire's reign. Turner's jaw dropped. Rebellion ... within the Deathworlders? This was the unexpected twist in the story he hadn't seen coming. What are you proposing? Turner asked, his voice carefully controlled. Help us weaken Varax's command. We will take care of the rest. We've already infiltrated the fleet's central core. We can disable their weapons, but we need you to focus your firepower on the flagship's weak points. It was a risky proposition, one that could either turn the tide of the war or throw Earth into chaos. But this was humanity's chance to strike a blow that could fracture the Deathworlder Empire once and for all. Turner knew what he had to do. "We're in," he said, his voice filled with determination. "For Earth, for the future." The final assault as the battle reached its peak. Earth's fleet focused its firepower with renewed intensity, now aided by the rebels. Within the Deathworlder ranks, the Leviathan's defenses were crumbling, but the true fight was still to come. Turner's heart raced as his ships drew closer to their target. The Deathworlders' arrogance had blinded them to their own weaknesses, and now humanity was taking full advantage. Turner's fleet launched a final assault, striking at the heart of the Deathworlder Empire. The Leviathan was doomed, but the rebellion within its walls had only just begun to take root. As the Vanguard made its final approach to the flagship, Turner knew that Earth's place in the galaxy was about to change forever. The Deathworlders' dominance was coming to an end, and humanity would no longer be content to stand on the sidelines. The galaxy was watching, and Earth was ready. To claim its future. Ask ChatGPT*.